What's up guys, it's ThrillZ here, and in today's video, I'm going to be counting down 6 of the worst tragedies that struck during the Christmas season. These range from mass murders, horrible events, and the founding of a terrible group. Anyways guys, let's get right into it. On Christmas Eve of 1913, a huge party in a copper mining town in Upper Michigan turned sour after someone yelled fire amongst the massive crowd of people. This party was hosting hundreds of people, and nearly immediately after someone yelled fire, everyone rushed towards the exit and down a flight of stairs. Amongst the confusion, 73 people were trampled or crushed to death. Out of the 73, 59 of them were children. In a disgusting turn of events, the person who yelled fire was lying. There was no fire, and to this day no one knows who yelled it, but what we do know for certain is that whoever did is indirectly responsible for 73 deaths. On Christmas Eve of 1717, a massive flood engulfed the shores of the Netherlands and parts of some Scandinavian countries. This flood struck with such speed and intensity that it left no room for people to escape the incoming flood. By Christmas Day, the flood had subsided, leaving entire towns erased from existence and killing over 14,000 people, either from drowning, trauma from stray debris, or exposure. Along with the heavy human casualties, many cattle and horses were swept away in the flood, adding insult to injury on specifically Netherlands' current state. The Christmas flood of 1717 was one of the biggest storms that northern Netherlands had seen at the time, and still stands to be one of the largest in Netherlands' history. On December 22nd of 1987, a man by the name of Ronald Gene Simmons completely lost his mind. Ronald Simmons, possibly out of anger for an upcoming divorce, killed his wife and oldest son with a .22 caliber pistol, and shortly thereafter strangled his 3-year-old daughter to death. He then waited for 4 of his other children to return home from school, in which he killed all 4 of them by drowning them in a rain barrel. Ronald Simmons supposedly lived in his house like normal after these killings for 4 days, drinking beer, getting drunk, and watching football. 4 days later, after having invited the rest of his family over for dinner, he killed his last 2 children, both of their spouses and both of their infant grandchildren, by both asphyxiation and by shooting them with his pistol. 2 days later, on December 28th, Ronald went to a local Walmart and bought another pistol, which he used to murder 2 other people that supposedly wronged him in the past and wounded 4 others. Soon after, he was convicted and sentenced to death. In 1990, his sentence was carried out and he was put to death by lethal injection. At the infamous Raymond Hall in Norfolk, England, the Brown Lady supposedly roams the halls. The picture of the Brown Lady is one of the most famous ghost pictures ever taken, but the backstory to who the Brown Lady really is more than tragic. The Brown Lady is a supposed ghost of Dorothy Walpole, who died in the building after being imprisoned by her husband sometime during the Christmas season. Her husband was determined to keep their marriage a secret, and in doing so, he kept her locked in the building. And a few months later, Dorothy became ill and died. For this reason, the Brown Lady haunts the building, particularly during the month of December, in revenge for her mistreatment. In a more famous case that was highly publicized due to the status of the family, the disappearance and murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey occurred the day after Christmas in 1996. JonBenet was reported missing on the early morning of December 26th by her mother, who found a ransom note on the upstairs staircase in their home. Only 8 hours later, JonBenet's body was found in the basement of the home, with duct tape on her mouth and a cord around her neck. Her death was ruled a homicide, but unfortunately, the killer has yet to be caught, even after 26 years. As many of you may know, the Ku Klux Klan is an organization based off of white supremacy and specifically discrimination against African Americans, Jews, Asians, Catholics, opposing parties, and many, many other groups. There have primarily been 3 separate clans throughout American history, with the first Klan being founded on Christmas Eve of 1865 in a town in Tennessee. What followed was the assault and murder of many Americans by members of the KKK. Many of these members dressed themselves up in a terrifying white cloak. The KKK still exists to this day, however, it is highly unpopular, much smaller, and less extreme. Over a century and a half of hate and violence was all founded on one of the happiest days of the year, December 24th.